It had been a clammy night, and King Ella had slept fitfully. He was forced at last to give up his bed as a vicious storm rent the night air. The rumble of thunder, drumming of rain on his roof, and, most alarmingly, the crack of lightning as it lit up the sky had all combined to bring him fully awake. He looked out onto his lands being battered by the harsh weather. It was almost as if God was sending him a sign. But how was he to interpret the sign? Was it a good omen or bad? Ella knew he would have to seek out his priest when, if, the sun finally came up in the morning, and ask the old man's advice. Father Hugluk would give the king the answers he needed. Ella winced as a particularly loud clap of thunder pealed directly over his house, and muttered a prayer that lightning wouldn't follow and set fire to the thatch on his roof. After a time, it seemed the storm was moving on eastwards. The rain lessened, and the frightening rumbles faded into the distance. He could see something burning not too far away in a field, despite the rain. A tree, perhaps, or a barn. Men were running towards it already, shouting at one another to fetch buckets of water and extinguish the blaze. If it was a barn, Ayla hoped that any animals inside were freed in time. Christ knew his people could not afford to lose any more cattle since the Danish raiders had killed so many of them already. The sea wolves had been ravaging Northumbria for 70-odd years now. Pillaging, raping, killing men, women and children or carting them off into slavery. Ayla shook his head and sighed. Maybe it will end tomorrow, he muttered, and began stripping off his bedclothes. He must have been staring out the window for longer than he realized, as the eastern sky was already beginning to lighten with the approaching dawn. "Are you not coming back to bed?" Ayla glanced across to see his wife Ethelthryth watching him from beneath her blanket. He smiled and shook his head. "No, my dear," he said. "I must prepare for what's to come." He lifted a jug of water and poured some into a silver cup. It was stale, but helped moisten his mouth as he continued to pull on his clothes and sword belt. He wanted to look his best, his most impressive on this great day. Ethelthryth had fallen back asleep by the time he was ready. Ayla went out into the morning and headed for the nearby church. The walls were strong, and the doors had been replaced after the raiders had smashed them open the previous year. From the outside, at least, it looked like a worthy place to worship God. Inside, however, it was but a shell of its former glory. The Danes had stolen the magnificent golden cross from the altar, along with anything else of value, and destroyed any furnishings they didn't think worth carrying off. The people had done their best to tidy up and rebuild the broken altar, but Ayla felt the rage rise within him again, as it did every time he came here. He had only been king for 2 years since his predecessor, Osbert, had been deposed,